Hey up! Right, here we go, part 2 of the Triumph Bonneville BOBBER Black customization series. The fitting of the better than factory quality Rialto rear mudguard from Motone Customs. Now, Triumph quality ain't bad, but I have to say this particular item puts Triumph's build quality to shame. An exclusive Motone Customs design in mild steel, painted in a hard-wearing black gloss that more than matches Triumph's paintwork quality. Which is saying something, because at least when it comes to paintwork, Triumph is the best in the business. Now, I've got to admit, this is the part of this project that I was least looking forward to. Triumph are quite well known for their questionable design solutions when they're building these bikes. They are, after all, intended to be a customization platform, but it seems to me that Triumph make it as difficult as possible for owners to work on their own bikes. And with the possible exception of the removal of the catalytic converter, this is a sod of a job. Now, I'm just trying to make that clear before we get started on this particular part of the project, because ordinarily, swapping a rear mudguard is a fairly easy, straightforward and quick job. It took me 7 hours to complete this, but I was filming it, and I reckon your average man on the street is probably going to require about 2 hours for completion. The fitting of the mudguard itself is quite straightforward. It's only 6 bolts, but getting to everything that you need to get to in order to, make this transformation is awkward. You are going to need to completely remove the battery from the bike and the housing to get at the single tiny connector that you require to undo to actually get the rear wiring loom off and away from the bike. I don't know why they put it there, but they did, and it's a pain in the arse. There are also 2 small fasteners that are a little bit awkward to get at. In my case, one of them was seized, so I also needed to remove the rear wheel. You may get away with removing the rear wheel, but just sort of be prepared for the fact that if you encounter the same issue that I did, it's a possibility that you might have to go through the hassle of taking the rear wheel off. If you can get away with it, obviously this job is going to be a lot easier and a lot quicker. But I suppose the silver lining of my troubles are that with me removing the rear wheel, I could get a much better camera view of what I was actually doing, which hopefully is going to benefit you. I'm not going to go through the battery removal and the rear wheel removal in this video because I've covered both on other videos. You should have a Haynes manual anyway for this bike. It's been out for 2 or 3 years, and including them would make this video ridiculously long, so make sure you have the necessary tools to hand to carry those jobs out if you need to. Hopefully, most of you are just going to have to contend with the battery removal. Again, ordinarily, on most bikes, this is an easy job, and just to give you an idea of how ridiculously difficult it is to get this battery out, this bike was a bike used for the Triumph launch of the Bonneville BOBBER Black. They stuck it in a warehouse for 6 months after the launch. Obviously, the battery went flat. So someone from the Triumph factory removed the battery to charge it up and wasn't able to put it in properly. When I got the bike, the brackets were all bent and twisted because they quite simply didn't know how to put the battery back in properly. So if the Triumph factory are going to find it difficult to take the battery out and put it back in again, be aware it's not going to be simple and straightforward to you. I would advise having your cell phone handy. Take lots of before and after pictures so you know exactly where everything goes. I mean, one of the difficulties I have is because they've bent some of the brackets sort of beyond recognition, it's actually quite difficult to work out how they go in. Once you've removed the battery, you'll find the connector from the rear wiring loom up at the top of the battery box towards the back. If you don't do this first, you're not going to be able to get the mudguard free of the bike. I actually did it in a completely different order, but you have to sort of take into account I get no instructions with these kits, and I have to figure it all out as I go along. And it is quite frustrating to get the whole mudguard unfastened and then find that you can't lift it away because you've got the whole battery assembly to remove. So do that first, get it out of the way, and then gently just tease the cable out, but it's hanging free and it's not going to cause a problem when you actually get round to lifting the mudguard out of the way. Now, if you've decided to go the same route as me, in that you're not going to be utilising the stock rear light and indicators, which you can with this Rialto anyway, it's a good idea at this point to install the Motone replacement rear loom. It's a simple plug and play option that removes the need to start chopping into your OEM wiring loom. That way, if you ever want to put your original rear mudguard back on, you can simply put it in place and plug the lighting system back in and you're ready to go. Just follow the same route that your old cable took, thread it in through the top of the battery box, and then just insert it back into the existing plug, and that's your electrics taken care of. Once you've got your battery back in, that is. To ascertain whether or not you're going to have to remove the rear wheel, right down at the bottom at the front of the existing mudguard near the swing arm joint, or pivot, there are two TX fasteners. Now, there's not an awful lot of clearance here, but you can just get the correct size TX key in there. I managed to loosen one off okay, but the left hand one was totally seized. Well, I say it was totally seized. We've got this never-ending problem with Triumphs that they tend to use a little bit too much Loctite in my opinion, and this was Loctite and wouldn't move. And I quite simply couldn't get enough pressure on this fastener to be able to turn it without chewing the head up, so the rear wheel had to come off. So test this. If you can get them both to 10, you're good to go without having to remove the rear wheel, because the rest is fairly straightforward. Once you've removed these two screws, obviously put them somewhere safe, but you're not going to be reusing them for fitting the new Rialto. Motone have supplied replacement stainless steel fasteners for the whole job. Next thing to do is to turn your attention to the two fasteners, one on either side, just below the top of the rear swing arm cage. Again, excess Loctite is a bit of an issue here. You'll find you're probably going to have to use a tool to get it almost all the way out before you can get it out with your fingers. On the left hand side of the bike, this fastener is clearly visible. These both engage on lugs sort of midway along the length of the mudguard. The one on the right hand side is actually recessed. And you'll also find that the chain guard is sort of in the way, obstructing your view. So you will also have to remove the front chain guard fastener. You can then go ahead and remove the final two fasteners. Now, you're not going to be reusing the mudguard stay that comes with the bike. Motone supply you with a complete new stay which matches the profile of the Rialto. There's a locking nut on the back of the left hand side bottom of the stay. Retain that. That is the only fastener that you will be reusing. The same fastener on the right hand side also holds the chain guard on. For some reason, I thought I'd filmed it, but I couldn't find it in my files. So I don't have the actual footage of me removing it, but as you can see here, that fastener goes into a captive nut on the chain guard. You will have to remove the chain guard altogether. And once you've done all that, you can now lift the OEM mudguard away from the bike. Because I had the rear wheel off, I took the opportunity here to clean up the whole swing arm assembly and to apply Built Hamber wax oil to protect it against corrosion. This is an area that is extremely difficult to get at when the bike is together. You know, clearances are very tight, so it's difficult to make a thorough job of cleaning up and protecting this area. And there was certainly some evidence of corrosion on the OEM mudguard. So if you do have the wheel off, it's worth taking the time to clean everything up and apply some sort of long-term rust proofing for the future. And again, it's totally optional, but before I even started this job, I coated the inside of the Motone Rialto mudguard with built amber, as well as the relevant parts of the accompanying stay. I do believe in taking the time to do things like this. Everybody's different. You don't have to do it, as I say, it's completely optional. And taking these kind of precautions when the opportunity presents itself goes a long way to you getting a few extra years out of any motorcycle. And obviously I'll leave a link to this built amber wax oil, as well as links for the Rialto, etc., down in the video description down below. Now, what I did next was to install the Rialto mudguard stay supplied by Motone with your Rialto mudguard, so that it gave me something to sort of rest and attach the Rialto to without fear of it sort of dropping and getting damaged. Use the two long, thicker bolts supplied. As I say, for the left-hand side, you reused the lock nut that was with the original assembly. On the right-hand side, you will find a stainless steel nut and spring washer in the kit. I just temporarily threaded a long bolt into one of the middle sort of fixing sections just to hold it all in place. This was actually the longest bolt which goes in the other side, but it doesn't matter. It was just simply to hold everything in place while I attached the Rialto to the actual mudguard stay. The inside of the stay has two captive nuts, and with the kit you will find two stainless steel domed Allen's nuts. Don't use any of the washers in the kit. Thread these in with your fingers and then tighten them completely. This is where you will find out whether you've got your stay the right way around or not, because it won't look right if you've got it the wrong way around. Then, using two of the washers provided along with the two stubby Allen bolts, you can fasten the lower front part of the mudguard in place. And this is a typical example of Motone quality. Everything fits precisely. There's no bending, pushing or shoving to get things to fit. Everything lines up exactly where you want it to, and there's no messing about. At this point you'll have three bolts left, another stubby one which is used for the forward fastening point on the chain guard, and two longer bolts, one of which is longer than the other. Use the shorter of the two on the left hand side, again with one of the washers from the kit, and then on the right hand side using the longer of those two bolts in conjunction with the final washer in your kit, fasten that in. And once you've done that, your Rialto rear mudguard is now secure. It might be just worth mentioning that the right hand side lug on the Rialto has a captive nut on it, so that goes behind the fastening point, whereas on the left hand side the tab or bracket actually fits over the fastening point, and the captive nut is actually on the frame of the bike. The threaded tab that you see below here is of course for the front fastening for the chain guard, and the final sort of stubby Allen screw that's in the kit is for use in that tab. I didn't refit it because we had a thunderstorm coming in and, I was running out of time. The chain guard is off for the moment. But obviously it goes without saying that the chain guard should be refitted as you're refitting the stay and the mudguard, in the same manner that it was fitted before you started. I'm sure you can work that bit out. Now there's one thing I will mention, because it had me scratching my head. The OEM way of fixing this in, the Allen screw on this right hand side fitting actually goes into a socket. And once fitted, it's more or less hidden from view. Now, I suspect that was maybe a custom bolt of a particular length that isn't widely available. But this longer bolt was too long to fit in the other side. You ran out of thread. And without the washer, it protruded too far on this side. So I think that's why Motone have included the additional washer. It looks fine to me, and it's safe and secure. Of course, the other option is you can use the original bolt, which I'm presuming will be the same thread pitch, and, you know, fasten that up in the same way that the original was fastened in. I will update you in a future episode if I find out anything to the contrary of that. Now, I've got to say, right from the bobber being released, I didn't like the rear mudguard. You know, the whole point of a bobber is that it's supposed to be a pared back, stripped down speed machine, and that large mudguard that comes with these bikes, for me, completely removed the true bobber aesthetics of the bike. I know that Triumph had to make it that way for homologation reasons, but personally, I think this Rialto brings the bike back to its true bobber aesthetics. And of all the choices out there, it's impossible to get it wrong with Motone quality. As usual, in the video description down below, I will leave a link to this Rialto on Motone's website, along with a 12% discount code available only to viewers of this channel. And in the next episode of this build, we'll be putting on the Pt2 3-in-1 combined micro indicators and combined tail and brake lights. I am, of course, going to be back on Friday, so until then, please ride safely, and I'll see you soon.